Today actually the kind of body consciousness that we have, we want to hold on to the body. In our 80 or 85 we are in an ventilator, we are on ICU, but still the craving for life, it doesn't go. Swamiji in Song of the Sannyasin, he says, thirst for life forever quench, it drags from birth to death and death to birth. You have to come out of this transmigratory cycle. This is samsara. Okay, the samsara vyadhi, they say, bhava roga. So what is the solution to the samsara vyadhi, bhava roga? It's a repetition of God's name. Shiva iti aksharadvayam. Shiva, just 2 letters. Enough actually. Swami says, beautifully in one of the letters, 9th volume it comes from Vivekananda. So our women actually, so in the midst of all the daily chores, if they just repeat Shiva Shiva, Hara Hara, in between, that's good enough sadhana, he says, for this age. They will attain to nirvana, they will attain to moksha. That will please the Lord. So whole day you don't have to repeat God's name, but if you can do it, it's fine. But even if you can't do that, in the midst of your daily chores, in the midst of all your responsibilities and duties, God knows actually how burdened we are. So if you just make it a point to repeat God's name now and then, that is sadhana good enough for you to help you getting mukti. In this Kali Yuga, that advantage is there. The least sadhana, we gain the highest of the fruit. But we should not actually let go that concession that God has given us. So these are all the stories that come to us. Sri Ramakrishna also again and again insists, for Kali Yuga, Naradhiya Bhakti. So for Kali Yuga, repetition of God's name is alone sufficient, that will give you the highest fruit. But Sri Ramakrishna says that you must utter God's name with love, with bhava. Right? As I said, in the beginning actually it might become a little mechanical, but as you keep doing it, if you can infuse bhava into that, and that will give you the highest fruit. And so, we have to taste the bliss that comes when we utter God's name. There is joy in that. So, because nowadays we want immediate result for anything. So, we don't have the patience to wait. Okay, this generation, actually have the least patience. So for even to attain success in worldly life also, you have to work steadfastly towards some goal, right? Overnight nobody will become successful. Step by step actually you have to go. In the same way, in spiritual life also, as you keep repeating God's name, your mind becomes purer and purer and purer, and as it becomes purified, and you will attain to that higher realms and higher visions also will come. But you need to have faith. This is the simplest sadhana that is available for us. The potency of the divine name. There are so many stories actually explaining us the greatness of the divine name in our scriptures. So in the Mahabharata we have, in Ramayana we have, in other Puranas actually we have these stories. If you just see some of the spiritual seekers who had attained to divine realization, mystics like in the south we have this devotional mystics. In Telugu mystics we have Annamacharya, we have Bhakta Ramadas, we have Tyagaraja. In Karnataka when you go there, Kanakadas and Purandaradasa. In Tamil Nadu we have this Nayanmars and Alvas. Just what was the sadhana that they had adopted? Just repetition of God's name, that's all. So after a certain period of time, they took full delight in repeating God's name, and that helped them actually attain to the highest divine realization. And particularly for householders, Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa says actually, in Kali Yuga, Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga are not that easy. Bhakti Yoga is the easiest. The Bhagavata also it is said actually, Etavaneva lokesmin pumso dharmaha param smutaha. Pumsa actually is man. For an individual, what is the highest dharma for this age? Etavaneva lokesmin. What is the supreme purushartha? What is the supreme objective? Supreme dharma actually. So, Bhakti Yoge Bhagavati. Bhakti Yoge Bhagavati. So, through Bhakti Yoga, actually you have to try to reach God. Tan Nama Sravanadibihi. Bhakti Yoge Bhagavati Tan Nama Sravanadibihi. In the Bhagavad Gita also we have this beautiful sloka where Krishna says, Apichet Suduracharo Bhajate Mam Ananya Bhak Sadureva Samantavya Samyak Vyavasito Hisaha. Apiche Suduracharo. Even if an individual is a confirmed sinner, Bhajate Mam Ananya Bhak, whoever actually repeats me sings my praises steadfastly, sadhureva samantabhyaha, he must be deemed a good person, a righteous person. Samyak vyavasito hi saha, as the individual is rightly resolved. Now he has come to the right understanding that repetition of God's name actually will expiate all my sins, will help me to purify myself. The individual has understood that. That's good enough. The Lord is saying that. He's a confirmed sinner. He is a sinner, still he is given to sinful tendencies. Those tendencies keep manifesting in him time and again, now and then again. It doesn't matter. But you don't have to get disheartened. So many people say, I started repeating God's name, but still actually I keep indulging in these acts. Okay, my mind actually, getting attracted to the wrong side of life. So negative things of life. No, you don't have to get disheartened. You just cultivate love for God. Parallelly, sometimes it will happen. The mind actually will be tossed between good and bad. So-called good and bad. Actually, there's nothing absolutely bad and there's nothing absolutely good in this world. And so you'll be tossed between these two. But you should not give up your effort. You should not give up your endeavor. You should not lose faith in the efficacy of divine name. The other day we celebrated Swami Yogananda's birthday. Yogananda goes to Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and he says, this lust, kama, is troubling him a lot. What should I do? And Sri Ramakrishna says, repeat God's name. Then he had developed doubt. What doubt? So many people are repeating God's name, but are they able to conquer the kama? Is it that easy? He has told something casually, he thought. And a Hatha Yogi comes to Dakshineshwar by name Narayana. So this Yogananda starts going to that Hatha Yogi because he wanted to learn some techniques. What techniques Sri Ramakrishna suggested, he did not like. He thought actually it would not be that efficacious because so many people are repeating God's name but still they struggle with these desires. So why would that happen if God's name is so powerful? And Sri Ramakrishna goes to him and says, he brings him back from that Narayana Hatha Yogi. See, those Hatha Yoga practices will not help you much. Repeat God's name with faith, it will work. And Sri Ramakrishna, when Sri Vivekananda was going to that Narayana Hatha Yogi, Sri Ramakrishna says that you belong to this place. Okay? You don't have to go for that Hatha Yoga practices. You just repeat God's name, that is sufficient for you. And afterwards he develops faith and reaps the full effect of the repetition of God's name. Afterwards he becomes such a man of self-control. And Vivekananda certifies him. If there is a person among us, he was referring to all other direct disciples, who has conquered kama totally, this is this Yogananda. And thus Yogananda got married. He got married. And all that happened, all that became possible to him because of repetition of God's name. Sri Ramakrishna had said in the beginning he didn't develop faith. He thought it would not happen like that. But afterwards he developed faith and repeated it. And he had acquired the fruit of the japa, and he could conquer. It becomes possible. The only thing is, we are not, we don't have that much of Shraddha as yet. It will come. Shraddha also will come. There is nothing to worry, there is nothing to get disheartened, there is nothing to get discouraged. The vakya, the sentences of Rishis actually are with truth. They won't utter an untruthful statement, right? We don't have faith, that is a different thing. But the statements of the scriptures are the statements of sages and Rishis who had experienced the truth for themselves. And they said actually, this is the sadhana that you need to do, and this is how you need to go about. And why should we disbelieve them? Because they were men of truth, women of truth. Have to have faith. The only problem is that we expect results too quickly, that's all. And then we give up the sadhana, nothing is happening. Yogananda also had doubt. So many people are repeating God's name. Not many are repeating God's name. Not. Definitely not. Definitely not. Because we don't relish that as yet, and that's the reason, though it is told again and again, it requires some love for God. We will be able to do it joyfully only when we develop love for God. And as we discussed this in the last class, cultivating love for God actually is the highest objective of human life. Why? Because the Lord actually is the only eternal thing. All others are temporary and transient. So if you invest your emotion in any other direction, it will be wasting your emotion, that's all. If you that transform it into love and actually direct it to the Lord, because He is immortal and He is eternal, and we will attain to that eternal realm. So, but all that we have, in our being, the emotion that we have, the love that we have, we give to actually mundane things and people who are actually transient. Actually, no relationship is a permanent relationship, because all these relationships are based on physical body, and the physical body is not permanent. So, all the relationships are impermanent in that way. So, having come into this world, the only object, the only being that you ought to love is the divine. And somebody who truly loves God, he loves everybody also. Because everybody is a manifestation of the divine. Every individual is a form of God for such an individual. That's why you just see the people, for example, Holy Mother Sarada Devi, or Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Vivekananda, for the matter, any other sages and saints, how much of capacity they develop to love the whole universe. They will fall in love with the entire humanity. But now actually to love 3-4 people in our own family, we struggle so much. Right? But that can be cultivated, that emotion can be cultivated. Once you start loving God, because God is there in every creature, the world will get transformed for you. The world will appear so beautiful. And Holy Mother Sarada said that everybody is my child. The Saradanandaji is my child, and this Amjad also, a robber. He was also my child, she said. My wicked child, my good child, she said. You just see the capacity of the woman to love even a thief, a robber. We just hate, right? We condemn such people in our society. We hate them. But whereas here, mother could develop that much. He is also my child, my wicked child, she said. So her motherly love actually had expanded to such an extent that she could embrace the whole universe with that. And that kind of love is possible to every human being for that matter. But only thing is we need to cultivate it. We need to cultivate it. There is no limit to that. It's infinite. That love is also infinite. God is infinite. The one of the definition that we give for God is actually love. Inexpressible, inexplicable essence of love is God, Vivekananda says. This is one of the definitions that Swami gives for God. Inexplicable. You can't explain. Inexpressible. You cannot express that way in words. That love is that's all. What is love? You cannot just utter it in words. L-O-V is only a word. It is a feeling that you understand it within. L-O-V will not make you understand that. You have to actually experience it for yourself. So expand it, expand it, expand it. That's the reason our rishis have suggested us, you try to love God. And then afterwards you will become such a love being. You will be able to love the whole universe. Okay, with that heart, your love heart, you will be able to embrace the whole mankind. What is that experience cannot be explained in words. Only the people who experience that understand that. Buddha had that kind of heart. Vivekananda could develop that kind of heart. This is possible for all of us actually. The thing is, love God. That's all. How to love God? Again the question is asked. You just tell that I am not able to love you. Oh God, please help me to love you. That's all. He will help you. So whatever the problem that you have, problem also you refer it to him. So if your chosen deity is Rama, let us say you read Ramayana and you will fall in love with Rama. If your chosen deity is Krishna, you read Bhagavata and Bhagavad Gita and you will fall in love with Krishna. If your chosen deity is Ramakrishna and you live his life and teachings, so you will fall in love with him over a period of time. And then afterwards the repetition of his name will become so joyful for you and you will be a joyful being automatically. Right? Your chosen deity, but in our culture, so they are super rich, when it comes to spirituality. Our rishis and have sages, instead of creating one form, which will become monotonous, they have created multiple forms for the same Lord, and also they have developed so much of literature around that form. Your Rama is a vast story, right? Your Ramayana, what a big scriptures, 24,000 slokas. Bhagavata, 19,000 slokas. Your Shiva Purana, actually, thousands and thousands of slokas. Any form of the Lord you take, and so much of literature is available. Why they have given that literature? Why so many stories for that particular deity? You will fall in love with him. If you don't know anything about him, if he is not your hero, how you will fall in love with him? You read Bhagavatam and Krishna becomes hero and Krishna becomes very dear to you. You read Bhagavad Gita if you can understand, intellectually. As such an intellectual giant. Or otherwise, you just Ramayana, Rama, you fall in love with Rama. And then Sri Ram, Jai Ram, Jai Jai Ram. You will repeat it with great love. You are repeating and uttering the name of your hero, name of your darling. Okay? The name of your beloved. Rama has become your beloved. This is the reason we also discussed this point. Actually, you should not be conscious of the power of the Lord if you really want to love him. The last class we discussed that. If you know that God is all powerful, almighty all the time, if you are conscious of that, you will never be able to love him. Consider God as your friend. Okay? Consider God as your brother. Or consider God as your child also. Vasalya, Bhakti, you can cultivate. Develop some kind of relationship, some kind of intimacy with him, and just actually be free to repeat his name. And you will attain to the highest in this birth itself. So this instrument is fit to attain that highest experience. So don't waste your time and energy in frivolous, worldly talk. Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa would not encourage anybody to indulge in worldly talk. Anyway, in home and all those places you talk about only secular things and worldly things. But when you come to hear Dakshineshwar, you would say, at least listen about God and talk about God, okay, all the time. So now we shall stop here today. Arati starts. We shall meditate for 2 minutes before we disperse. Om